Boundless Authenticity Podcast.
Zoe Malloy is a Milab and Secret Space Program experiencer who has been involved in covert operations since childhood, possibly even infancy. Her earliest years were surrounded by strange phenomena. Her mother recalls paranormal events, visits from mysterious hooded beings, and even agents standing silently by Zoe's crib. Haunted by visions and psychic dreams, her mother, also gifted, always sensed Zoe was connected to something otherworldly. As Zoe grew older, her memories began to surface of being taken by military factions and reptilian beings to underground bases, subjected to training, interrogations, and dark experiments. She recalls Black Ops missions on Earth and experiences off-world, as well as traumatic involvement in the hybrid breeding program, where she later met a hybrid daughter created through her. It wasn't until recently that Zoe received a clear message from her higher self, MI5. That revelation unlocked a deeper understanding of her connection to Milab programs. She learned she had been part of multiple operations, Delta, Assassin, Beta, sex exploitation, and others tied to elite ritualistic control systems. Despite being silenced before her first YouTube channel erased through manipulation and harassment, Zoe is now reclaiming her voice. Her new channel, Milab Gone Rogue, is where she shares her truth and lived experiences in the hopes of awakening and supporting others like her. Zoe, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going great. Thank you. How are you? Are you all well?
Yeah, I'm just steaming my ass off in sunshiny Barbados.
Oh, lovely. It's not so nice here. It's gone a bit cloudy. So, yeah, it's supposed to be getting nicer next week. So I can't wait.
Okay, cool. So if you can, go ahead and tell us how you realized that you were a part of these experiments and experiences.
Okay. So I'm 39. I didn't actually get memories until I was in my early 20s. And when I say memories, it's kind of like flashbacks and repetitive dreams. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of memories that have been suppressed or blocked through, let's just say, suppressing technology that is out there. If you ever watched Men in Black, with the whole light, memory gone. It's a bit more complex than that. But a lot of the time, or if we have suppressed our own memories of, if we've had trauma and things like that, we don't want to deal with memories, we push in, it goes to the back of our head and stuff like that, regardless whether it's us doing it or it's through technology. They're always in there somewhere. And one of the common ways that our memories can come through is through dreams. Just like our subconscious fears can play out in dreams and things like that. So, of course, at the very early beginning stages, that's all I put them down as, is just dreams. Oh, that was a strange dream. I was taken by military, and there was these weird, non-human, green, scaly beings wearing military personnel uniforms standing next to military, and there was also contracts, pieces of paper, and people wearing lab coats. And I just thought, oh, that's crazy. I'm a lucid dreamer. I've always lucid dream as far as I can remember. It's very rare that I don't remember, an experience or a dream, because many people won't probably believe this. When we are asleep, we are going from one dimension, which is this dimension, into other dimensions. So our bodies are like avatars, and our consciousness and our astral bodies, or our spiritual energetic bodies, doesn't need to rest, just our avatar. And so it can venture off into other dimensions. It can go into parallel lives, alternate realities. And if you have all your clairs open, so like your clairsentience, claircognizance, clairvoyance, third eye open, often those use labels, psychics, mediums and things like that, but specifically psychics as well. A lot of them get their information is when they leave their body. They go to these other realms, these other dimensions, and they can see potential timelines that are close to our timeline. they come back with information, or we can even receive spirit messages from our higher self, our spirit guides and our ancestors, and just spirit in general, and bring that through as well. So we get up to all sorts when we're asleep. So I wanted to mention that because, a lot of time people like me, when we share our experiences, they do sound a little bit woo-woo, a little bit crazy, a little bit insane. You've watched way too many sci-fi movies, and things like that. But there are many souls on this planet for many different reasons. Like I say, we do have our sixth senses, or even more, or, we have our abilities open. And because of that, we are able to perceive things that are outside of this dimension. It could be through dreams. You could be sat on the sofa one day and all of a sudden you'll get flashbacks. You'll just receive information. There's many different ways. So again, memories come through to me through dreams, flashbacks, a feeling, memories, or a trigger. So anyway, going to the beginning. So yeah, at the beginning, I thought, oh, what a crazy dream. And then it would be another dream, or a flashback, and not just a flashback, but it's emotions and fear attached to that. Sudden fears and phobias, and you've got no logical reason or explanation, of why you've got them. Like, why all of a sudden am I fearful of the water? And then you have memories and flashbacks of being put through water torture as a form of punishment, or a way to create trauma in the mind, to create, so our mind compartmentalized. And then these groups, these organizations, these shadow government operatives, they take those parts of our mind and then they create altars for different reasons and agendas, and they place us in these little, programs. There's many programs. I'll probably touch a little bit on that later if I remember. So like I say, in my 20s, it wasn't just like, when I was asleep having these experiences. I was having, real experiences in my personal life. So for me, a lot of supernatural, paranormal, seeing UFOs, seeing entities, beings in my room, seeing with the physical eye. I even had an experience, again, I was in my 20s. I won't go into too much detail, and I just want to mention as well, I didn't understand at the time what this being was until much later on. As it turned out, this being was actually a reptilian. And basically, long story short, I went to bed, sat on, and I wasn't asleep, I was awake. I was just kind of relaxing, open my eyes, just having a moment. And I see this human, well, it looked human, standing at the end of my bed. I remember he'd got blonde hair, blue eyes, and he just basically was just staring at me. He didn't say anything, and all of a sudden I felt like I wasn't in control of my own energy. It almost felt like I was under some kind of control of some kind. Now I know obviously what that was. It was mind control. And he made me feel a certain kind of way, something that I couldn't control. And basically he walked towards me and climbed on top of me and got his own way, had his way with me, you know what I mean? And after he finished, he climbed off, he stepped back and he just looked at me, and then he started glitching, like pixelating. It was so strange. And then he went from his human form to, well, he basically went into his true form, which was his full reptilian form. And I remember him being very tall, broad shoulders, prominent bone structure. He had like this almost like shimmery grey colour to his skin. He had like textures and lines and patterns on his skin. And he just had this real big menacing smile. And then, of course, his eyes completely changed and they disappeared. And there's more to that. So, I've had, like I say, experiences like that, not just when I leave my body at night. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I've been taken astrally. They've took my conscious, I've bilocated, so that's kind of like where you can be in two places at one time. And what else? Oh, and of course, like physically. So there's many different ways that they can take us. So anyway, so yeah, my dreams were just the same thing. The same thing, as I mentioned, military, reptilian, now I know, lab coats and things like that. So it just kept happening. It gets to the point where you're like, why am I having so many of the same dreams? And then they became more intense. And, I started having experiences where they would drug me and take me to an underground medical facility. And I remember one particular experience. I remember they can induce sleep as well. That's another thing. They can induce us to feel sleepy. And I'm typically a night owl. I don't get tired until about 1:32. Sometimes even later. And even then, like, I'm not the type of person that can just, as soon as my head hits the pillow, just gone. It takes me a while. So sometimes they'll just induce sleep, and all of a sudden, like 10 o'clock at night, I'm just like exhausted, and I hear my mind's eye go to bed, which is a form of mind control. And then you go to bed, and the moment your head hits the pillow, you're gone. And then you wake up, and I discovered that I was on the floor, slumped on the floor. I remember looking down. I remember feeling it was very cold. And I was literally wearing exactly what it was I went to bed in, even everything down to the minor detail. For instance, I got a bruise, on my leg, or I cut myself shaving, all this, every detail is the same, and it's solid as well. And in my experiences, when they have taken me, it seems that reality or that dimension, where they take me, it seems so much real than this one. My life, a lot of the time, like now, it feels very dreamlike. That's how real those experiences are. And so yeah, and then you know that you're drugged because you're feeling drowsy, and oftentimes I'm kind of like had my eyes closed, and then I'm slowly coming around, and that's when I realised I was on the floor looking down at myself like, what the heck? Oh, not again is usually what goes through my head. Who's taking me this time? And anyway, on that particular experience, there was a woman, and she was stood in front, and I basically, I called her and I said, "Can I have some clothes, please?" And she was like, "Oh, yeah, let me just grab something." So she grabbed me something to put on, and I get up, and I just remember seeing, it was just very bright, and there was these huge fluorescent lights, and very narrow, long stretched corridors. And either side of the corridors, there's like rooms that have like their own windows and doors and things like that. But anyway, shortly after me getting up, trying to, keep my balance, because obviously with the effects of the drugs, all of a sudden I hear footsteps, and then I see someone walking up towards me, a male wearing a white lab coat, and either side of him there are two reptilian human hybrids in military uniform. And I remember he had a little tag, but I couldn't make out the name because I was still coming around from the drugs. And it's always the same. They're always, these doctors or whatever you want to call them, these people in the lab coats have always got military with them every single time, in my experiences at least. They take me into the side room. They bring out this device, and basically it's a frequency scanner. So they're scanning my frequency, I guess, to see if there's any, tags or implants that aren't their own, because all my labs, we are heavily implanted with tags, implants, and they can be physical, they can be energy implants, and things like that. So after they scanned my body, they were basically giving me an ultimatum, and basically wanted me, through manipulation and ultimatums, to sign a contract. And I just said, no, absolutely not. And I remember then I walk back out into the corridor hallway, and And I remember seeing my mum then all of a sudden, except for it wasn't my mum, it was a hologram of my mum. And this is one of their tricks. They do this often. They use technology to mimic, or they use the reptilian to shapeshift to look like someone that you are close to. And in this case, someone who I'm not close to. So, yeah, they've done that a lot. They use family members or friends, like I say, holograms, or they shapeshift, and you just know it's not them because it's just not natural. And so they are kind of sloppy, really. And oftentimes, I can figure out, what they're up to and stuff. But the whole point of that is to kind of make you feel like the environment's safe, like what they're doing is good for you or right. And, your mum's here, she's supporting you. Woo, come on, like sign this contract. I always say no, but unfortunately I have signed contracts under mind control, MK Ultra, through dreamscape manipulation, which what do I mean by that? So, you'll have these dreams, which they are, but they are staged, managed, manipulated dreams. So basically they use technology, and they'll also be there in the present, meaning, military or reptilians, again, disguised as, let's just say, an ex-partner, someone who you were really fond of, to really draw you into that dream, to make you feel like you're having a nice dream. But really what it is, it's manipulation. And then it's a way to trick you into consenting into things, or, again, signing contracts and things like that. So these aren't just, these dreams are not, or experiences are not just something that happened 2 times or 3 times. These have happened countless of times. So, yeah, and then trying to live a normal life. I am very logical. I am very, very rational. I always debunk things. I need evidence. And of course, I couldn't get any of that. So, I pushed all that in the back of my mind whilst going through PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and fears and insomnia, OCD, panic disorders, things that crop up. And the reason why these crop up is because it's the trauma that's associated with the things that they've made us do, for instance, like missions. Perhaps we got hurt in missions, perhaps we hurt someone because of our alters, or because of mind control, or most common is because of the trauma they've put us through. Again, different ways and techniques to trauma the mind, to split the mind, to create alters. And that could be any time, any kind of things to do that. And, there's a book, I think it's called The Body Keeps Score. So even if we don't remember on a conscious level, our subconscious and our energetic body and our physical body remembers all this trauma. You go through trauma, it's in your energy. And this is why we have fears. If let's just say you drowned in a pool at 6 years old, and then you have a fear of water. Well, of course, that makes sense because you know where that fear's come from. But when you have a fear and you've got nothing to, in your personal life, to pinpoint where that fear is, where it's come from, it makes it tricky. So, all these different things crop up throughout my life, fear out of nowhere, huge fear. And then you'll suffer with severe panic attack and anxiety, and you're hypervigilant for weeks, and then gone. Like nothing had ever happened. You have a fear of driving or leaving, leaving too far from the house, or you have travel anxiety all of a sudden. That was never there before. Real bad, intense, gone. Things like that. So this can be, like your alters fears as well coming through. And I don't mean alters and what we see in the mainstream. Those that we, often see on television and things, we see drastic shifts in those that have DID, dissociative identity disorder. It's very obvious that they've got this disorder. But Milab alters are slightly different because ours have to be a little bit more under the radar, not to stand out too much because, otherwise we'd be like, why have I got all these alters? Why have I got DID? What's going on? So a lot of our alters can be very similar to us. And sometimes these shifts, people might not even notice the shifts within us. We could sometimes telltale signs, for instance, the way we speak, sometimes the accent may change slightly, perhaps our persona, our morals, our beliefs, the way we carry ourselves, the way we dress might alter slightly. But, if I'm having a conversation with someone like this, it could be something as simple as zoning out or dissociating, that kind of feels like you're going in a trance. Or I might cough, and then what's happened is one of my alters have shifted. So, a lot of people can't pick up on that. So Milab alters, are quite different to those that are not in the Milab programs that have alters. Of course, trauma creates, if enough trauma happens, it can create the mind to split anyway. But with the Milab alters, each and every one of our alters, which is us, have all been trained to basically, keep quiet, or they've been controlled, or put in their little areas, and then they only come out whenever these, whenever Milab takes us, they only ever come out when they deliberately trigger one of the alters for a particular mission. So, for instance, one of my alters is in the beta program. If you're American, British, you say it differently. And that's kind of like the espionage. That's kind of like the sex kitten program. So, for instance, an example, we'll be undercover, and we'll be going to, let's just say, a strip bar or a nightclub. And our mission, our purpose is to basically charm and use manipulation tactics to whoever the target is, whoever it is we've been sent out to get information and intel from. So we might pretend to offer them, adult things in exchange for information, or we'll drug them, and things like that. And again, and this is all under mind control. So that alter is under mind control. Then you've got the program Delta, which is like the assassin. I'm in that as well. So again, oftentimes we do solo missions, and we are MK ultra'd and basically given orders, and basically told where to go, who to take out, and then we'll just, examples, one of my experiences, we'll just sit and lay on top of buildings, and with our weapons, and then we'll just target them and take them out, one shot usually, or however many shots we need to. So again, all these different programs have different roles and agendas and things like that, all negative. There's no positive programs, by the way. They're all for negative, nefarious reasons. These groups, Milab, they take souls like myself for many reasons, because of specific DNA, because of high IQs, or because we have certain advanced and mature, let's say, psychic or psionic abilities, or metaphysical abilities. And so, long story short, they utilize us, weaponize us, take our energy, take our frequency. They can soul scrape part of our soul, put us in AI, put us in weapons, put us in reverse engineered or back engineered technology. Off-world beings, ships, if they've crashed or things like that, as you see in all the movies, the CIA straight in there, or they send in the military or wherever, they're straight there, they take the technology, and then they back engineer or back reverse, take it apart, put it back together, and they're creating their own ships. And so they use souls like myself's consciousness, and consciousness that sometimes comes from elsewhere other than Earth. And they can, put our consciousness in AI, in technology, in weapons, in many things. So, yeah. And I know it sounds very out there and hard to believe for a lot of people. And, I respect that and I understand that. But, like my experiences have just been non-stop. So then only last year or a year and a half ago, some of these like, as I said before, I was kind of just putting it all in the back of my head, like I didn't want to believe. And I just want to be normal, just want to live life to the best as I can. But unfortunately, when you're my life and you've gone through what you've gone through, it's very hard to live a normal life, whatever normal is. You can't see the world the same way as you once did before. You can't unsee, unknow, unlearn, unfeel, untraumatize everything that you've experienced. You're just never the same again. If anything, it's very lonely, depressing, isolating. You can't speak to the doctors about it. You can't speak to anyone about it, because if you do, then they will accuse you of having paranoid schizophrenia, or I don't know, you're delusional. Quite often we get called those labels, and that's fine. It's understandable. So yeah, and I just want to be normal. I want to have these feelings. Why me? And it does feel like you're alone. At the time, you don't realise, that it's happening to other people. You just don't. So yeah, so last year or a year and a half ago, I actually sat with myself on the sofa and I went inside and I said, look, okay, I'm ready now to accept that these experiences are real. I've got more than enough self-validation and evidence and proof like that. Like, it was just ready. And I guess it was part of my healing journey as well, to just accept rather than keep suppressing, because if anything, it was just making it feel more uncomfortable. So I checked in and I said, look, I said to my higher self, I'm ready now. Who's been taking me? And I heard my higher self, Genesis's voice, in her own voice and accent. She basically said MI5, and at the same time as I was saying MI5, I saw in my mind's eye in big black letters MI5 as well. And I was like, MI5? I've heard of MI6. I've heard them in movies. I know they're real. It's the real groups, but MI5, I had no idea. So I went straight on Google and I was like, oh crap, okay, so MI5 is the British version of MI6, basically the same thing. And I was just like, oh, well, yeah, well, that makes sense, of course, it would be them. And it just made sense. And then all of a sudden, like, all my flashbacks, memories just coming to the front of my mind, and it was just all playing out like a movie. And I was just like, whoa, it was quite overwhelming. It was like everything all fit in, everything just made sense. And so for me, it really, really sealed it. It really, like, I knew it was real, but after finding a name, a group, it really, really made it real. And I kind of was somewhat emotionally, psychologically prepared, but also not at the same time, because it's huge. Because you can't, for me anyway, at least, I was like, well, I can't pretend it's not real. I never heard of MI5. I know, I'm British, but I've never heard of MI5. Never. And how would I have known that, But anyway, so yeah. But I still had no idea that I was a Milab. I got that far a year and a half ago that, okay, MI5's been taking me. I was like, it kind of makes sense, actually, because I have a military base 10 minutes away from me in my car. In a car. 10 minutes car journey away. I'm struggling to get my words out. And then I went even deeper, and I was remembering of all, thinking of all my other houses that I used to live in, and they were all on that ley line. Every single house that I've lived in, because I left home at the age of 16, and I've kind of, lived in different towns. But yeah, they were like 5-10 minutes away from this military base. And in fact, in this house, quite often I'll see, the military, when they're training and stuff like that, the planes and things, helicopters. And I was just like, you can't make this up. And then I realised that it was these that were taking me in underground tunnels, because there's a tunnel system, especially in Europe, or in a lot of places, I know in America, but especially in Europe, there's tunnels everywhere, under churches, schools, museums, banks, parliamental building, even the royal family's homes, tunnel systems everywhere. In fact, the tunnel systems were there before they even built on top. And so, quite often, they'll take Milabs through the tunnels. And quite oftentimes, though, the Milab, the military, and when I say military, I mean the dark side of the military, and the governments and stuff. So, and they can use their ships as well to come over and take us. And that way, they have got the technology to cloak the ships, so no one wouldn't be able to see. And they've even got the technology to induce sleep in the whole street. They could literally, and people wouldn't think, they're just like, oh, I'm tired, I'm going to go to bed, and the whole street's asleep, and they can come in and take you. They've got technology to freeze time and space. They've got they've got technology to manipulate energy, and just like, it's insane. And this technology they're using is off-world technology. And they've been doing this, they've had this technology, at least on this planet, well, at least from humans. Humans have had their hands on it on this planet since the 1940s. And, and they do all sorts with this technology. So, yes. Then I connected, after realising it was MI5, of course, then I was just ready. Then I just needed to find other people like me, or people that understood. I needed help, And I remember I was on TikTok, and I come across this TikTok live, and there were 3 people on there. And as it turned out, they were all part of these programs. And there was one woman, she has to hide her identity because she is heavily targeted. She's also got her own abilities. And she knew within the first 2-3 minutes of speaking to me that I was a Milab. And then she explained to me what a Milab was, and I basically shared my experiences with her. She says, I knew it. She says, you're a Milab. So obviously she was meant to have crossed my path. She was a piece to my puzzle. Perhaps I manifested it. Perhaps it was, my higher self arranged it. I do believe that people come into each other's lives for different reasons, either to help us, teach us, heal us, learn from us, and the same with, these military groups can also orchestrate negative connections and relationships as well. So often my labs, we have handlers. So perhaps we meet someone, get in a relationship with someone, and then it turns out they are a handler because they are just keeping that trauma on us. We often call them narcissists because they do have narcissistic tendencies. And, the whole point of them traumatizing us and controlling us is to prevent us from raising our frequency. If we raise our frequency, we are able to access our memories more and come into our power and sovereignty. And they don't want that. So it's very important that they keep us in a low frequency. And this is why it's always trauma, controlling, possessive, perhaps physical, and sometimes, in that sometimes it's like that as well. Many people in my family have been handlers. Again, very traumatic. So a lot of my labs have had very horrific, traumatic upbringings, abuse, and stuff like that. So oftentimes, my labs, the abuse either starts at home. Again, the same purpose is to split the mind, compartmentalize the mind, so they can create alters. Some of my labs actually have very loving upbringings, and they have, a fairly normal life. And how they get compartmentalized is my labs, the groups that take them, they will put them through trauma and through many torture methods and things like that, or physical, psychological and sexual abuse and stuff like that, whatever, different ways that they want to use. And there's so many my lab victims that still now have no memories that I don't even know yet, because I'm not at that point yet in their spiritual awakening. They're not, they have no idea that they're my labs, just like I had no idea. They might have weird dreams or missing time, or there's signs when, like, I know when I've been taken, for instance, I'll look at the time and it will be, let's just say, 3 p.m. in the afternoon. You'll go and do something, and then you look at the time again, and it's like 6 p.m. Like, what have I been doing for 2 hours or something? And you're like, all I've done is this and that. So, sometimes I leave clues. I remember one time I was sat on the end of the bed. I was on my phone on TikTok, as you do. And I was like, I need to put the washing on, in the washing machine. I've got all my washing, my dirty laundry on the hallway. I was like, I better get up. So I walk out my bedroom into the hallway, a big pile of washing on the floor, and I'm picking it up like this. And then I'm heading around the corner down the stairs. And all of a sudden I'm back at the end of my bed again. And I don't realise straight away. It's like I'm on, it's like I'm there doing what I did before I got up, and I'm on my phone. And then it dawns on me. So instances like this, you're not supposed to remember. But people like me are remembering, because we're having these glitches, or they're unintentionally leaving sloppy clues, because they're not cleaning up, they're not being careful. Because a lot of the time they often undermine us, and they think, we wouldn't think anything of it, or, whatever. But the thing is, it's like, when they leave, a sloppy mess like that, so what I mean is, it's like they have technology to erase our memories. So when they take us, before they bring us back, they erase our memories. And I have memories of them erasing my memory before bringing me back. That's another time. But what's happening is, because we are raising our frequency, a lot of these memory erasing implants, so again, they can erase our memories with technology or drugs, which I've experienced both, or they have implants on us as well, which keeps that trauma and memory suppressed. But what's happening is, when you raise your vibration, these implants, especially the memory erasing ones, they're no longer a frequency match. Not that they ever really were, because they're very low vibration, but it works obviously when your vibration is lowered. But of course, like I say, when you raise your vibration, you're just vibrating out of the range and that frequency of that implant. So then what can happen is that implant will malfunction. It will just shut off. It will just be weakened, and then it can't hold our suppressed memories. And then we have these memories. So like I say, I was on the end of the bed, on my phone, and then something didn't feel right. And I remember sitting thinking, I was just walking down the stairs to put washing in the washing machine, but now I'm at the end of the bed again. It's things like that. And of course, I'm like, we're going crazy. So I call my daughter. I was just in the hallway. She says, Mum, you was just talking to me. You was on the way down. And I went, oh, well, I'm all of a sudden I'm in my bed again, at the end of the bed. And she went, that's weird. So they obviously must have done something to her as well, because she didn't have any memory. She would know if I would know, wouldn't I, if I was if I was, it was weird. It was just very weird. But, yes, there's just loads of things like that happen and stuff. But I don't know if you've got any questions. If there's anything you want to know a little bit more, anything specific.
So, if you wouldn't mind telling me just roughly where you're located, is it like a small town?
Yeah,
I asked that question because there seems to be a parallel between all of the genuine experiencers. I have to differentiate between the genuine ones and the fake ones. They're all located in there's this connection between being in a small town and being close to a military base that runs in all of them, as far as I can see.
Yeah. So, I live in a little small town. It used to be a little... it's a very old town. It used to be a little pottery town. Got an old railway somewhere. In fact, one used to run where my house is, which is funny. But So in a very small town. I am pretty much smack central England. I'm right near where the ley lines cross. So yeah. And going back to the military bases as well, I only realised last year that I got a military base that close to me. And what's also interesting as well is this particular military base, on the sign, there is, it says the word dragon in brackets, which is interesting because I'm very drawn to dragons. I used to sketch dragons. I remember as a teenager, I couldn't understand why all of a sudden I was so obsessed with dragons. And I was sketching dragons. And I used to sketch pages and pages and pages of these dragons. And again, it's my way, my subconscious's way of trying to tell me and give me clues, that dragons, we know, is oftentimes, we think of reptilians or Dracos, the dragons, which were the ones to take me. So there's all these behaviors that I went through and little clues and stuff. Again, in my 20s, I was at the airport and I was with my nan and granddad, and this man was just drawn to me. And I can't remember if he walked up to me or I walked up to him. There was this weird magnetic energy, and he was actually really pleasant, and I felt like I'd known him forever. And I don't feel like that with everyone, but when I do get that feeling with others, it's usually for a reason. Anyway, he told me he was from Wales, which is a country in, I think it's Europe. No, it's classed as Europe. But have you heard of the country Wales? You must have done. Anyway, on their flag, they have a dragon. So again, dragon again. And I remember he said to me, that was it, because when he told me, I was like, oh my God, I love dragons. I love sketching dragons and stuff like that. And I remember him giving me his address or postal address, and he was like, I'd love for you to draw me a dragon and send me one. I would love that. And I don't remember actually sending him one. But you see what I mean? It's like we get these clues and synchronicities and patterns. And at the time, you just think, oh, what a coincidence, and I could go on and on and on and on. My old friend, her mum, she had shelves and shelves and shelves, units full of dragon ornaments. I was just like, wow, this is crazy. So yeah, it's just very interesting, again, with the military base and the dragon. I remember when I saw it, I laughed. I was like, of course, dragon, and a lot of the time people say, well, you seem quite calm, Zoe, quite collective, like, you seem like it hasn't affected you that much. And I just want to say, like, a lot of time, those that have been through trauma, we do block it, or we tend to have a certain sense of humour. So, for instance, I have a bit of a dark sense of humour, not because I'm a bad person. It's just a way, it's a coping mechanism, it's how I deal with it. And I'm not always like this. Sometimes I'll have triggers. Sometimes I'll have flashbacks, and I'll go into almost like, a psychotic mental breakdown because it's too much, Sometimes I do laugh. Sometimes I cry, I had my old YouTube channel. Unfortunately, my old one's no longer there. And that's where I shared a lot of my experiences. And I found it was very important for people to see that vulnerable side to me, because it's one thing with me is I'm very, I like to believe I have a lot of integrity. I like to be transparent and honest. And I feel it's important for people to see that vulnerable side to me, which is very huge for me because I often don't like to be vulnerable. In my personal life, I'm not vulnerable. I don't, I'm very like to be well put together and stuff like that. So being vulnerable it was never easy for me. But after having these experiences or being brought back from these experiences and remembering, I always, pick up the phone and I record, these experiences. And sometimes I am a mess. Sometimes I'm, I just don't look very good. And people could twist it and say, oh, say she's crazy, she's mentally unstable, she's got mental health. Look at her. How are we supposed to take her seriously when she's doing videos like this and she's, crying and not in the right frame of mind? People can twist things all the time, but for me, I just think it's important to show that side, because there's so many Milabs that have gone through these traumatic experiences, and they all you see is ego. All you see is using their experiences to create money, to create channels, to create a huge following. Or, I'm not saying that because they are that way, that doesn't mean they haven't gone through that. I guess we're all different, but, I just see a lot of people romanticizing their experiences and glorifying it. And like, it really isn't. If you are a real victim or have been of these programs, trust me, it humbles you very, very quickly. Let's just say, that's my experience. I am very humble, very, very misunderstood. I often feel the need to have to over-explain myself, defend myself. And I'm just kind of at the point now where I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm not going to apologize for myself. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. And I always put on my channel, because I've now got a new channel. You either believe me or you don't. I'm not here to make anyone believe in anything. I don't share my experiences to make people believe me or in these programs. I'm just here showing my experiences, and and my main goal is to kind of be like a lighthouse for other Milabs, those that have not come into that understanding or information yet that they are a Milab, or like already I've helped so many with sharing my experiences, and they're like, oh my God, wow, yeah, I've a memory will come back, or I'll trigger a memory within them, or something that they went through, and be like, oh my God, this makes sense. I could be a Milab. These experiments have been going on for eons, and the reason why they've got away with what they've been doing for so long is because of the suppressing our memories, blanking our memories. These groups, these shadow societies and organizations, and the dark faction of the military, and Milab, the CIA, and all that, they've been doing some really evil things, and for a long time as well. And they've been using normal people like me, to keeping their hands clean. We've been their test subjects, we have been their guinea pigs, we have been their soldiers, we have been their weapons. You name it, we've been it. And they've been using us for a long, long time. And I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but a lot of us, like I say, with this collective consciousness shift happening right now, with everyone, going through a spiritual awakening, like I say, they are now able to tap into the very, they're able to tap into their subconscious. They're able to retrieve memories. Not even with, not even on purpose. It's just come in to the front of their minds, and it's amazing. So of course they need support, and this is where people like me come in. So there's no ego in it for me. I didn't want to share my experiences. I mean, if that was the case, I would have shared them a long time ago. I've been having these experiences since I was in my 20s. It's not service to self. Unfortunately, I see that a lot with other people. There's so many people, over Milabs, they won't go on other channels or other Milabs channels unless they've got a huge following. That's kind of a red flag, isn't it? And like I'll have anyone on my channel, and I'll be on anyone's channel. I don't care how big or small their channel is. And quite often those with small channels are more the honest, legit ones, But I can't think of anything else to say now, unless you've got any specific questions.
Oh, I'm definitely going to keep you talking.
I do. I talk a lot. Yeah. The thing is, I have a tendency to digress. It's quite annoying. So people ask me a question, It's like I'll start going into it, and then before I fully answered it, I'm then digressed into something else. Maybe it's a Gemini thing, maybe it's a split mind thing, but I'm back and forth. So yeah, it can be annoying sometimes for people, but I try my best. I'm not a confident speaker, she says, even though I haven't took a breath, but I do struggle sometimes.
Well, I'm a hypnotherapist, so I can verify that, for example, with the vulnerability and the chaos that follows I guess having a breakdown of one of the altars, or breaking some kind of a command or a cap or something that has been put on you so that you don't remember, you don't divulge certain things, or you don't switch. It's kind of like when you get a package from Amazon and it's in a really big box, and there's a couple other boxes inside there, but then there's all those little packing peanuts, and you take it out and it goes all over the place, and you're like, oh fuck, now I have to pick this stuff up, and you just end up with this huge mess in all of these boxes, or it's like a Russian doll type thing. You just keep opening it and there's another doll and another doll.
That's my mind.
So the average people don't understand that is essentially a response to trauma, and a lot of people go through that. They also don't understand that when you're listening to information like this, and let's say, for example, with your vulnerability, you were just making a video where you're recounting something that you remember. It's difficult for you, and there's snot flying everywhere, you're crying, whatever. They don't understand that physical reaction is almost like being locked inside of a dungeon and you're chained to the wall and someone's beating you. Right? They don't understand that. And a lot of people will project their own inability to be vulnerable onto you for saying that you're crazy and things like that. But they don't really do this work, so they don't know the degree to which things can get pretty hairy pretty quickly, One of my questions for you is, what was your relationship with your parents like? If you're able to say or comfortable saying, who in your family do you suspect was involved in military covert operations or even connected to the military, who might have been a part of organized crime, or who might have been a handler in your life? Or maybe some of your family members were also targeted.
All of the above. I believe my mom, I don't know if she still is, but I believe now, looking back at how she was, now because I understand more, I know, all the signs and symptoms and things. She was definitely mind controlled and definitely in these programs. So was my uncle. A lot of my siblings were. And so, military connections. So my mum's dad, he was in the military. Both of my stepdads were in the military, who were also handlers. They had attachments, and one of my mum's exes was actually a human reptilian hybrid. Yeah, which explains a lot. So there was a lot of so I was the eldest of 6 siblings, and right off the back there was I don't know if you want me to say these things, but a lot of abuse, psychological, physical.
You can be as explicit and detailed and graphic as you want. That's why this is the Boundless Authenticity podcast. Continue.
Great name. Great. I love the name. Psychological, physical, emotional, all the abuse that all of the types of abuse, like what you get on. I'm struggling now. You have to excuse me. But so I went through a lot of abuse from memory, from I think it's around 3 years old. So the first memory of some kind of abuse was my mum had a dog, and I used to be absolutely terrified of dogs, absolutely terrified. And when my mum was at work, it was often just me and this dog, and I know, obviously, he was just a happy young dog. He loved my energy. He was chasing me around, but to me, I believed and felt like he wanted to eat me or hurt me, and so I often screamed. My stepdad, who was in the military, or was in the military, he left before he met my mum, but he's definitely still in the programs. He took the dog outside. He still had his weapons. Don't ask me how or why, but he got some of his weapons, as I found out. And you probably might want to put a warning or something. But basically, he killed the dog. And I didn't see it, but I heard the animal and I heard the gunshot. And then I can't believe I remembered that. I was 3 years old. Anyway, I completely forgot about that memory until about 6 years ago. It somehow came up because me and my mum was talking about that stepdad and talking about animals and pets, and it just came out. And my mum, first of all, was surprised that I even remembered. She was like, Zoe, you were a toddler. You can't remember that. But when I told her everything, she was like, oh my God. And then, of course, I told her that he killed her. My mum immediately ran off into the toilets and threw up, because that's how my mum deals with stress. And she was like, she went, that big bastard. She said, he lied to me. He said that he left the door open, the dog ran off and he got hit by a car. And she says, I knew there was something weird about that. So it just gives you an idea of, as they often say, those that can kill animals like that, well, they're not right upstairs, are they? Like I say, he was abusive. He killed animals as well. That wasn't just a one-time thing. Like, he was just very cold. He did have a reptilian attachment as well. And then he went to prison when I was 13, and then I ended up kind of being like the mum, because my mum went off the rails. She was drinking, drugs, she couldn't cope, deep depression. I hardly went to school. My life was just a shit show, and I had to step up for everyone, including my mum, and no one was there for me. So I always had to play that role. I had to be the strong one. And then my mum meets a second paedophile handler, worse than the first one, my stepdad, which is my sibling's real dad. He went a step further. He tried to kill my sister, tried to kill my mum. I watched him use mind control on my mum. Of course, at the time, I had no idea what he was doing, and I watched it happen. I saw my mum shift. She was properly under his control. He tried it on with me, tried to make sexual passes at me. Well, he did. He's got a very unusual long tongue. That's all I'm going to say. He tried to kiss me and nearly made me throw up. It was weird. And, of course, at the time I had no idea. But looking at him now, he literally looked like a reptilian human hybrid. He was definitely one of the lower ranking ones. Very tall, slender. Not that it always means, if someone's looks like this, and what I'm going to describe means that they are, by the way, and I'm not saying that they are reptilian hybrid, but he was very tall, lanky, had small brown beady eyes close together, very thin, dark hair, brown eyes, and it was just creepy. I remember we lived in the pub, and he was always in the shadows. It was always creepy and sneaky and just very dark, and it was just very weird. He was into music, heavy music, metal music and things like that. He wrote a song for my mum, literally. He titled it Dancing with the Devil. Yeah, quite literally. He tried to kill my mum, like I say, mind control. He tortured my siblings. He some of the ideas he would come up with, he was very creative, let's just put it that way, when it came to torturing. And I won't go into different ways, but he really targeted my brothers real bad. And the girls as well. He tried with me, but he was the worst of the worst. And I'm pretty sure he because the partner who my mum's with now, he's also used to be in the military. I'm trying to remember if the stepdad I've just spoken about, the reptilian hybrid, I can't remember if he was in the military or not. But anyway, two of them were in the military. My first stepdad and the one who my mum's currently with now. So Yeah, and I just want to share this because I think, this might interest people, but these MyLabs, these groups, they target family lines, they target blood groups. And, a lot of us souls are old souls. We've had many lives here. I was actually in World War II in my past life. I was a male soldier, so I've been in the program since then. The Monarch program you often see with celebrities. People look at celebrities and they'll look at old photos of like different centuries, and they put them next face to face with these celebrities, and they're like, oh my God, they are identical, yeah, because they've been in the programs ever since. So technically, they kind of never left in a sense, because either a celebrity dies and they put them in a new body, a clone, or they completely exit the body, or they can track the frequency and the energetic body and bring them back into a clone, like a clone baby. Or they can insert the consciousness soul into a mother who is still part of that bloodline, if that makes sense. So I was in the programs in World War II. I was a soldier, and but if you look back in my family line, it could be like, oh, my granddad, but really wasn't my granddad. It was me. I was my granddad, but it wasn't. It was me. Like my family would think it was my granddad, but really it was me. And they've put me back into a body. So they've been recycling me. So I've been here. My earliest memory is Lemurian times. And I don't know exactly when they got their hands on my energy soul, but I know I've been in the program since World War II anyway. So yeah, and I know there's more family members that have got military connections as well. But yeah, so we definitely do have that like I said, that military connection.
All right. My chickens are going crazy because somebody just laid an egg. But
oh no.
What I was going to ask you is, what's your relationship with your siblings like? Are they estranged from you?
Yes, so I'm cut off. Well, I've cut myself off from the whole of my family just for protective measures, because they're not safe to be around, as it turns out. So again, this is very common for MyLabs. So again, they've got to keep that trauma, they've got to keep that division, that conflict. So oftentimes these groups, they will mess with siblings or your partners or your best friends through mind control. They can implant, thoughts and feelings in their head to make, those close to you feel a certain way about you, and that can cause conflict. It can cause them to not trust you. So they've been messing with my siblings, and I know they've messed with one of my brothers ever since he was a young child. He often used to wake up and say that there were strange men in his room, or he would say quite commonly that there was a hooded, like an entity standing in the corner of his room wearing a hooded cloak, chanting, and my brother saying that he would see symbols around. So whatever this entity was doing, he was obviously casting some kind of energy or something on my brother. Again, this wasn't a one-time thing. This was a common thing that happened with him, as well as his personality started to change. So he went from a very loving, calm boy to all of a sudden, he was just changed. He was very aggressive, very angry. He hated the whole of the family. He tried to kill himself. And out of all of the siblings, he always was gunning for me. He just despised me, hated me. And as he got older, he used to attack me. He used to chase me around the house with a knife. Sometimes being, that far, nearly, being that close to it, the knife going in my back. It's only because I managed to slam the door when the knife's in the door. I was close to my other brother. That changed. I was close to one of my sisters. And again, they just messed with them, and they went from being, close knit or somewhat close knit, siblings fall out occasionally, to all of a sudden being enemies. completely split the family up. And a lot of my siblings have got certain tendencies. So trying to think of the right word, but another big thing in my family is, so obviously I mentioned the abuse. So obviously abusing their own, flesh and blood, a lot of RAPing, and even one of my brothers, he basically started molesting my other brother. I think there was like 2 years, maybe 3 years between them. And my mum just turned a blind eye. It was just so obvious what was going on. I remember the first night I was in bed and I was hearing some things, and I was like, "You've got to be kidding me right now!" And I was just frozen. I was like, "This can't be real." And there was no one in that bedroom except for my two brothers. And I won't share with you exactly what I heard, but I heard some things. And then the next morning, they were, let's just say, used condoms and things like handcuffs on the bed and weird things like that. And then at one time, my younger brother, the one who was being molested and RAP'd by my other brother, he was having real bad bleeding from his behind, let's just say. And my mum didn't do anything about it. She just left him with it. So we did try to tell. And I remember this one time, at that particular time when he needed help, I remember him looking at me, and he knew I knew, but it was like he was too scared to say anything, because he knew if he'd said something, my brother would beat the shit out of him. And I often saw my other brother, the abuser, the one that abused my younger sibling. I'd watch him. Whenever my younger brother would, want to say something or do something, he was always looking at the brother who was abusive, as if to say, is it okay? Am I allowed to do this? Like the brother that abused the younger one, he was very controlling, very threatening. He was just disgusting. And they've got children of their own. And so there's a lot of that all throughout the family, all in the, going way back in the family line. We are part of a certain bloodline, so it's very common that there's a lot of sick things like that, a lot of relationships going on between relatives. My uncle used to try it on with me, and it was just disgusting. And of course I didn't want anything to do with that. And I just eventually, when my mum tried to really she did harm my sister, enough was enough. I just said, that's it. You're not seeing me or my daughter ever again. So they have messed with them. A lot of them have entity attachments. They have no idea that these attachments are manipulating and controlling these family members to do certain things. It's just disgusting. So this is very common. Again, going with what I was saying before, my first stepdad, he had a reptilian attachment, and whenever I wasn't in the house as a kid, this reptilian attachment was following me, literally haunting me, taunting me, showed itself to me, intimidated me, scared me. Just obviously, it was assigned to me, to carry out the abuse and stuff. Because my dad, whenever he wasn't abusive, he was very Jekyll and Hyde. Like, this might sound weird to people, but when he was a dad, he was the most loving, protective dad, very childlike. There was no abuse in him. He was just so, like, he was the best dad ever. But then he would switch and he would be something else. So again, it was because of this entity, and it's very common. So many people have these entities. I'm not saying that humans aren't capable of doing these things anyway. Naturally, I'm sure there is, but majority of those that do abuse are because they're victims themselves, or because they've got entity attachments. And how many times we often hear, don't we, these murderers, all of a sudden, everyone's like, I don't understand how he killed his family. They were the best family ever. He showed no signs or symptoms. Like, it was just amazing. Everyone was just in shock. And then, the dad gets, I don't know, is in court or whatever. And they're like, what possessed you to do this? What happened? They either don't have memory, or sometimes I will say, a voice told me to do it. Yeah, because it was under MK Ultra and mind control. Like, it's another thing, they use us in so many ways. So yeah, so many people have no idea that they're victims, no idea. And I'm not saying it to create fear, but let's just say, we know this world, many of us know this world isn't quite what we, it's not, like, it's not perfect. It's not what we've been told it is. And the more light that floods this planet, the more of it is going to highlight, all these things that are kept hidden, all these nefarious activities that have been taking place. And they're also going to realize a lot about themselves as well. So yeah, we're in interesting times. Yeah, it's insane, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I have told people to read a book by Dr. John C. Hall, Guinea Pigs. If they don't believe that they have the technology to use long-range weaponry to put ideas in your mind and, as you so candidly said earlier on, make you feel a certain way. There's an example in that book where a woman's just sitting inside of her house and, she was swearing that she was being targeted. And, when it would happen, she would feel like touching herself. And she would just be like, where is this coming from? Other people would be like, they'd be sitting around and they would hear these voices all of a sudden on one side of the head or the other telling them to do certain things. I mean, I myself have been drifting off to sleep and you hear these voices, like this distorted voice, like a radio frequency trying to tell you things. And I know how to shut that stuff off. So I'm just like, yeah, fuck off and go to sleep, But I hear a lot of this very commonly, and it reminds me of this 18-year-old girl. Well, she was 18 at the time, so this was about 7 years ago. And I met her, and she's from Florida, and she just saw me and she just started talking to me, and she was like, you know what? I know that I can trust you. And she starts divulging how her father is basically, he started off by abusing her, but then he sold her off into a similar type program where she was held down and she was raped into submission, and she was mind controlled and made to do all these different things. And then, she would black out and she wouldn't remember a lot of stuff. And then it just, one day the floodgates started opening, and I was just sitting there, I hadn't been doing this work for very long, maybe about 3 years by that point. And I was just out in public and she just starts talking to me. So imagine my jaw's on the floor. She just starts telling me all this stuff. It was really the first time I heard about anything like this, any kind of ritual abuse or people talking about being parts of these programs. So, something is going on this planet, and it's bubbling to the surface, where whether anybody believes that it's real or that it's happening or not happening, that's totally up to you, the individual, how much you want to think about on any given day, I think. Maybe a lot of people feel like there's nothing that they can do, but it begins by, I should say, the solution begins by spreading this information so that there is a common awareness of it. Because the only tool that we have throughout the ages when you're dealing with elites and stuff is to beat them back into the shadows. But if people don't know that it's going on, then no one at all can at least talk about it or do anything about it. And they tell us that we're doing this.
Get away with it. Yeah, and they continue to get away with it. And sorry, carry on. I know what you're going to say, yeah.
I was just saying that they tell us that they're doing this stuff all the time. People don't believe in like the beta programming, etc., the sex kitten programming, but then they will listen to Doja Cat, Cardi B, Ice Spice, all those people Katy Perry. They don't believe those things. Rihanna, I mean, I live in Barbados. That's where she's from. Grew up, our parents knew each other. She lives not far down the road. We all knew when her behavior started becoming erratic, and she would come back here and be holed up in hotels and stuff, high-end villas and stuff, and be drugged up, and things would be happening to her, and everybody would just be told to just look the other way, like you didn't see that. We know that things like that go on television. They've been recycling this idea, and it's always a woman, and it's always something to do with a woman named Nikita as her code name. You have the television show Nikita that came out in the early 2000s, I think it was. And then you had before that, the one in the 90s, La Femme Nikita. In the very first episode, anybody wants to go watch it because they tell you the story of a girl that's been mind controlled. And she has these different altars that they turn on and off in order to go assassinate people. The same thing. She seduces some people and things like that. It's waved right in front of you as entertainment.
Yeah, because they have to tell us. They have to tell us in their own manipulative way, or or truth. What's that other saying? Truth hidden in plain sight. But they put them in movies, and they turn them a lot of the time, especially like the alien ones. They make them comical, because then that just programs humans' minds already. Because then if people speak about their extraterrestrial experiences, what are these people programmed to do? Automatically they'll start laughing, oh, that's not real, that you've watched too many movies, don't be silly, it's all deliberate. We're all under, as a collective, as a whole planet, we're all under mind control. We've all got programs installed within us, and these programs started the moment that we was in school, or that was purposely, or that was was deliberate. It's a way to sieve out, let's just say those that have specific abilities, or that they're good in certain areas and not like that. It's a lot more deep than that, but I don't want to get into that. But yeah, it's the Matrix, isn't it? It's everything that we've all gone through. It's all just been staged, orchestrated, managed. These governments pretending to be there for humanity's best interests. No, they're not. They're there for themselves. They're just using us. Give us a little, I don't know, a paid package. A salary at the end of the month. Whilst keeping us docile and poisoned and low, trying to keep us in a low vibration, so we don't question ourselves, don't question the system or outside of the box, and we're just there's just programs everywhere, and it's just it's crazy, but it's dismantling now, and people, are waking up and realizing that they are in the Matrix. It's all by design. And a lot of people are going to be in for a rude awakening, so they better get on board really, because people like me, we're here to help soften the blow, and because not only when we're sharing our experiences, we're talking about the government, all of it. None of them can be trusted. They're just groups within subgroups. It's like that little group, you concentrate on that. But it's all for bad. It's all for nefarious reasons. It's not because they care about us, And they've all got control, or they're trying to control us. The thing is now, it's like we're all, not all of us, but hopefully that's the plan. We're like little sheep. We're running riot loose now, and they've got to try and rein us back in. So, let's see what tricks they're going to bring out, to try and control us, which is usually through fear, which is what we see all the time, the narrative, isn't it? It's all doom and gloom, news and fear mongering. It's all to keep us in a state of fear. Fear controls. Fear lowers our vibration. And fear is what they feed off. They've got no fear, they can't exist. If they've got no fear, they can't continue manipulating us. So fear is very important. And this is why it's fear all the time. They control the news, the media channels, you know. Sometimes they'll tell you some little truths, but the majority of it, you know, it's disinformation, it's misinformation, it's lies, it's just fear, you know, all of it. And, you know, I'm loving it. I mean, how many times have they got to say we're going into World War III, or there's this pandemic, there's this pandemic, there's this new virus. I mean, people are laughing now because they're getting on board, because they're realising, you know, that, well, the government, the shadow government, are realising that they can no longer control us, you know, and they have to get that reaction, that emotion, that fear from us, because without that, well, they've lost, haven't they? And yeah, I mean, they've tried all sorts now, haven't they? But it's quite interesting. So, as I always say, enjoy the show, guys, and eat popcorn, just don't eat too much. But yeah, it's just interesting, isn't it? See where it's, you know, it's heading. But yeah, leave them with it, because at the end of the day, it's like they're just these small little groups of men, you know, and they're actually more terrified of us, because we are so much more powerful than them. The things that we can do that they can't, you know, it's just, and they don't like that. It scares the hell out of them. What are they going to do when all of us all get on board and we all come into our power and sovereignty? Who's going to be running? It won't be us, it'll be them in their £1 million bunkers, you know. But yeah, it's you know, they will try and take us out. They have taken many people, especially people like me. Milab's Max Spy has been one of them. They took him out. You know, you're more at risk. You know, myself, the more of my experiences that I share, or the more memories that I come into and I share, I can guarantee I'll get attacked. I get gang stalked. I've had strange men knocking at my door, sitting in cars outside my door. I've had a van drive past, and all of a sudden, you know, the back door's open, and then these two men are pushing out this huge camera and they're pointing it at me, staring at me, and I'm like, am I in a movie scene? Am I, you know, have I, you know, something going on? You know, thinking that they're shooting something, you know, a person or something, you know, and there's no one there, and they're just staring at me, you know, and then all of a sudden they pull the camera in, shut the door, and they go speeding off, you know. Targeting, pretending to be gas men, taking readings, you know, strange phone calls, you know, psychic attacks, astral attacks, you know, so many ways, threats, emails. So, and it's always the same. Whenever I share my experiences, that's when it happens. When I'm quiet, I get no bother. But the moment I start sharing my experiences, they're on it every time. And it's a way to disempower us, shut us down, to lower our vibration. And the thing is, yeah, they have got me. They've got me a few times, and they threatened me as well. They took me a couple of years ago now, when I first started sharing my experiences on TikTok, before I shared them on my original YouTube channel. They took me from my bed and literally implanted me, chipped me, and gave me 24 hours to take down all my stuff. And of course, after that, when I came back, I did exactly that, because I freaked out. But you know what? You know, I always get back up. I am very resilient, and I always get up, because, you know, people are just like flabbergasted sometimes. They're like, you should be scared, you should be terrified. I'm like, yeah, don't get me wrong, I've had my moments. But, you know, when you just get sick and tired of being used and abused and dictated to and threatened, and you think, well, you know, you just get enough. You know, you just, for me, it's like I'm an alchemist. So it's like I alchemize all that trauma, all that pain, all that disempowerment, all that, you know, you're weak, you're a liar, you're pathetic, you're this and that, depending on the types of attacks you get. And I just turn it into power, and I'm back up again, and I'll just continue what I'm doing. So the more they do it, actually it backfires, because the more stronger it makes me, the more determined it makes me to get my story out there, to get this information and awareness out there to help people. You know, that's how it is. Sometimes we actually get taken out, depending on the level of influence you have on people, depending on the size of your channel. You know, if you're going around doing conferences and you really are influencing a large group of people, you know, you'll, if you're not, that, of course, that's if you haven't been compromised and infiltrated to spread lies and misinformation, and usually they'll be left alone. That should be a red flag. But the genuine ones, you know, they'll be taken out. They'll be suicided. You hear it all the time. So, but yeah, I mean, it is risky. I do tread with caution. But to be honest, yes, I have a lot of memories and I've had a lot of experiences, but it's not about comparing. But what I mean is, if I look at other Milab experiences, they've got a lot more knowledge and understanding of it because they've had that realization for much longer than me. They've had time to interview more people and connect the puzzles and do the research. So until I get to that level, I'm kind of seen as like a very low threat, but they will still mess with me. But like I say, the more information you and more you understand, the more that you're sharing, the bigger the risk you are. It's just how it is down here, or in other places as well. So, but still, everyone's memory, everyone's experiences are important, no matter how big, how small, how much you understand, and how much you don't. Because we're all here. We're like stepping stones for other people. So my information will be easier for those that have just come into that realization to kind of, understand and accept without it being like, whoa, too much. If they went to someone like, let's just say, I don't know, hypothetically, someone like James Bartley, who's very, like he knows a lot. I mean, people that are just coming into this information or understanding that they're in my lab, they might not cope. Going from that to speaking to someone like James, I might just freaking lose it, So, certain people are drawn to us at certain times. And, so I believe that's kind of how it works as well. So, yeah.
Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer. So we should wrap it up here. And next time we can talk a little bit more about your off-planet experiences and other various things.
Yeah,
but for now, sure. I will say thank you for sharing this information. What you have said is true. You're at a huge risk. And the thing about it is that the average person might not understand the severity of this for you because maybe they don't want to do anything to you. Maybe they'll go after your daughter or somebody like that, But that's how these people operate. So you have to be very careful to a certain degree what you say and what you,
yeah.
who you talk to, because you never know, you might end up talking to someone that is a narc,
Yeah.
So thanks for being on the Boundless Authenticity podcast. Zoe, can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah. So I have my YouTube channel. It's called Milab Gone Rogue. I'll send you a link, or unless you want to just copy a link off my YouTube and attach it to the description, I don't mind. Either way is fine. But yeah, so Milab Gone Rogue, same name for my Facebook, again, Milab Gone Rogue. TikTok, in case you want to go on there, that's where I kind of post my shorts. And also as well, with my YouTube channel, not only do I share my own experiences, again, to help validate and give support to other Milab victims or just to anyone who's interested, I also offer it as a platform for those that wish to come on and share their experiences. So if you are a Milab yourself, or you suspect you are, or you know someone who is, and they want somewhere to go to share their experience because they feel compelled to get their story out there, because quite often we do, then just give them my information, and or they can contact me on my email, which is Malloy, so ZMOLLOY 497@gmail.com. And you can reach me that way as well. And usually what happens is, if you want to come on my channel, we'll have a little phone call or face video, whatever you call it. So, I'll get to, just get to know you, understand you a little bit, and then we can arrange for you to come on my channel. So, yeah, that's kind of how you can find me, and if you want to come on.
Great. Thanks again.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me on. And I look forward to coming on again in the future.
Okay.
You're listening to the Boundless Authenticity podcast, where we discuss everything related to the evolution of human consciousness.
At the very least, people need to understand that the United States builds bunkers, which are basically cities underground, every 3 months.
Basically, when you dream, you tap into your subconscious. It is your nocturnal intuition, your creativity and imagination unchained from conscious reason, ego and logic.
They're biologically alive, but they have no soul. They have AI consciousness. They can alter your conscious of the brain to get in the brain.
We live in a multidimensional reality. Whether it comes through esoteric information in the spiritual realms, or the UFO people, experiencers, or mainstream through quantum physics and through mainstream science now realizing that parallel dimensions probably exist.
We're all spiritual beings. We're all having these human experiences. We've heard that phrase over and over and over. But what does that really mean?
You know, all the big questions of life, we have these answers inside of our souls.
We're ultimately studying the nature of what it is to be human, good and evil, our psychology, how we think, our health. That's why I love Bruce Lee's great quote, all knowledge is ultimately self-knowledge.